Have you ever wondered whether your paid caregivers or other family members might be contributing to the aggressive responses that you see in the person that you are helping living with dementia? You might be right. Today's episode is a dementia caregiver support in action, where I coach one of my community members related to responsive behaviors that are specifically aggressive in nature and how to help her problem solve some of these aggressive responses, as well as other caregiver challenges that she is facing as she is navigating this journey with her spouse. Hey, Christian caregiver. Welcome to Dementia Caregiver Support for Christians, the podcast where I teach Bible-believing Christians how to make dementia care easier today, while also helping you focus on tomorrow. If you are a Christian spouse, an adult child, or a family member of a person living with dementia, this podcast is for you. Here, we focus on kingdom-focused caregiving, and we honor the Lord Jesus Christ during our caregiving journey. Listen to today's coaching episode where we coach this particular caregiver who lives in Canada related to how to help her husband stay at home. Well, hello, sweet friend. So tell me what's been going on, Mirella.
So the highs are still pretty high, but the lows are getting lower. The extremes are broadening there. And after coming back from Greece, he had some behavioral outbursts in closer succession, to the point that the service provider through home community care is kind of the offshoot of our health, our universal health system, where they help coordinate for our paid for caregiving. Mm-hmm. The service provider is an independent company. They work together. I have my advocate at home community care, but the service provider obviously is there to provide care and protect their employees. Mm-hmm. All understood and everything like that. So I lost a few people who were coming into the home regularly through outbursts. The first one was a gentleman. He was coming somewhat regularly. And there was a bit of a fiasco in the sense that he told me that Colin hit him, but I didn't hear a commotion. I didn't observe it or anyway. And it took him a week to report it to his employer. So I found it disingenuous in the sense that if it really was something, he was supposed to report it right away. Mm-hmm. That's his duty. Even so, they cut Colin off for a week or two until we could, have our meetings and go through that. And then I spoke to the coordinators higher up, and they were all very company told the line, and we're not sending somebody back in until you do XYZ. I did XYZ. They brought people back. And then Colin had another outburst, what I described to you, where he punched the girl who, suffers from the migraines, and she didn't follow the care plan. The one thing that went wrong on that day is that we saw he was in a bad mood. We had a difficult time getting him down the stairs. I had to go take a meeting. I said to her, give him his protein drink. And she went to give it to him right away instead of letting him decompress. And so I heard the commotion. I had to leave my meeting right as soon as I got on the meeting. I had to leave it, come down, found her composing herself. She wasn't hurt or anything like that. But sure enough, obviously I expected got a call, and apparently she went off on workman's comp. And I was like, okay, kind of thing. Because she says, my migraine is getting worse. And she says she wanted to leave. And I had a conversation with her. I said, do you want to come back? I knew her well enough to ask her. I said, are you comfortable, or do you want to come back? And I guess she went away for a few days, or when she told the employer what happened, they either told her you can't go back, or she decided she didn't want to come back. Mm-hmm. So again, Colin's care has been on hold now for the last 2 weeks. I've had some private care brought in, and Colin had a small outburst with the first girl who came. So she didn't want to come back. It wasn't serious, but it was enough for her to say to herself she didn't want to do it. And so now I have somebody new for the last week and a half, and so far so good. I'm always there during the showering, the major hands-on care, the showering, the toileting, and getting dressed. I'm always there because those are the moments where he's most vulnerable and he has a high likelihood of acting out. And we've determined that he needs long breaks between certain, the showering activity. Let him have a rest, 15 minutes, or whatever it is. Get him dressed, shave him, bring him downstairs, let him have a rest, all of those things. So I'm doing everything I possibly can. Now the service provider wants me to look into the PRNs, I guess. I don't know if you call it the same thing, but those as needed medications. But I had actually just started him on cannabis. So I've been waiting now for them to tell me whether or not, because Monday, actually, we go to see his neurologist. So I'll ask about the PRNs, but the PRNs can take a while to balance, find the balance or whatever. Meanwhile, I've started him on cannabis 2 weeks ago. And I asked him, well, can we consider the cannabis? And the hard part for me is that Colin, when he's low, it's next to impossible for me to get him upstairs if I haven't moved him up early enough. I had rearranged hours with the care provider that's paid for just an hour, for someone to come in for an hour every single night to help me put him to bed, but I don't have that right now. Okay. And I can't do that through private because they have a minimum, 3 hours that they have to come for. So that didn't make any sense. So right now I have somebody 3 times a week, and I can shower him and keep him clean, and that's all fine and dandy. But I guess where I'm going with all of this, and I had some very stressful moments with him where I was like just flipping out, because, he was doing things like sitting in the middle of the staircase. I, would have to make him ride the staircase down on his butt, just causing dangerous situations and I'm wondering to myself if I am resisting too much the idea of converting the downstairs room into a place where he is basically in bed all day long instead of on a couch, or, changing locations like that. Forget about taking him upstairs unless there's 2 of us to take him for a shower. But the thing is, I still want him to do things while he's physically able, Sure. So I don't want to, there's 2 reasons that I don't want to convert the room downstairs, for example, or think about putting him in long-term care. Because on the one hand, of course, the service providers and the coordinator and everything, they're all telling me, well, long-term care, there's more people there. Like if he rejects someone else will come in. And I said, yeah, but they could tie him down because they don't want him to get up when he's unattended. They could leave him in his poop because he doesn't want anybody touching him. I just don't trust it.
Just a different can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the objective has always been to keep him home. And, again, when he's good, he's good. He's a dream. He walked around the mall today. He was getting tired, but I sat him down, made him have a rest. We got something to eat. He still wants to be out and about, even though he knows he's a handful, kind of thing. Other days he doesn't know he's a handful, and he's completely stiff and uncooperative, and it's a challenge on me physically. But I guess I don't know if I'm resisting these things for selfish reasons or for good reasons, in terms of moving him into the downstairs and creating a bedroom for him on the first floor, or even considering the long-term care.
Okay. Let us start with the long-term care first.
Okay.
Because I think that it is possible to keep him at home. Specifically because I know the 2 of you and I know your support system. And, briefly when you and I were on the phone a couple of minutes ago before we started, you were talking about medication, right? Now, medication is not my first line of defense, but it is absolutely a good tool. So in a facility, if he were to exhibit the behavior that he has in the past, because one of the things that you said on the phone was you're a little reluctant or scared to maybe consider some of the medication because it'll make him more sleepy, right? So in a facility, yes, there are other people that can come in. Those are all true things. They can bring in other care providers when these things occur. But my experience in facilities are that it is so much like I know him personally, right? So I know that he gets overstimulated with sex. Lots of activity all the time, and that's what he's going to have in a facility. It's rushing, lots of noise, and that is actually probably going to make his behavior worse, and they'll give him medication.
Right.
right? So if he goes to a facility, they're going to give him medication to manage his behavior. That's going to be the reality. His quality of life is going to be less. Your quality of life with Colin is going to be.
Yeah.
So I still think facility-based care for him is the last line. Okay, so now back to you guys in the house.
Yeah.
Yes, it is good for him to be but what I want you to think about and what I want you to consider is a couple of things. Number one, the steps are starting to become dangerous for two reasons. Number one, if you go down with him, he's in a facility.
Yeah.
If you get hurt trying to get him up and down this, you go down with him, he lands on top of you, you break something, he breaks something, everybody is in a world of right? So the stairs are really becoming dangerous, even though I know on a good day he pops up and down the stairs. I get it. I understand, but it's not consistent. And it is getting to the point where I would be worried about you getting. And if you get hurt, Colin is up a creek and no pad.
Yeah.
Right? So one option is a stair lift to go up and down the steps. Take walking up and down the steps out. It's a financial investment. It changes the house. It's not necessarily my first line of defense, right? But it is a solution. It is something that you can think about, that consider, is that the solution?
Right.
Colin is still doing, at least from what I can tell, medically, he doesn't have a lot of other things going on. This process for him can go on for a while still. This is not, we're not talking about we're right at the end of this journey. We're in hospice or we're getting close to hospice because he's still physically strong. He's a strong man.
For the most part. I mean, there have been changes. Like he does forget how to chew sometimes, for example, holds food in his mouth. If he's got his eyes shut and there's times where we cannot raise him. His eyes will not open, and he can't be raised.
Okay. So how close do you feel like he might be to being hospice?
It's so hard for me to say because, again, those are the bad days, and the bad days can last 2-3 days in a row, and then he's 2-3 days strong. It's
is
just
he losing weight.
No.
Okay. So
his appetite has changed a bit, but he isn't losing weight.
But he's not losing weight.
Right.
So to me, my crystal ball breaks every single time I do this, right? I can't prognosticate how long he's still going to be here, but we may still be looking at a year or two of this journey. So when we're thinking, or longer, right? I don't know. But when we're thinking of the remainder of his life, if your desire is to keep him, what is going to be the most practical, safe for him?
I mean, I know that converting the room where where he sits and spends his time, and I just walked into before, was going to be coming at some point. And again, I come back to, am I doing it resisting it at this point for the right reasons or selfish reasons? Because it changes our dynamic as a couple. And it changes, of course, the overall sense of the house, the mood in the house.
Absolutely. And I understand 100%. And what would you regret more?
Obviously, if he got hurt because I didn't make the change soon enough,
okay,
that I would regret. Yes.
Okay. So in light of that, how practical a solution would a stair lift be in your home? Both financially and geographic, what the staircase looks. Is it something that is feasible, or is it something that is really not feasible?
From a financial standpoint, I mean, I have no idea how much that really truly costs, but I believe that it would be something that I would invest in. However, in terms of the staircase itself, the top of the stairs gives me pause, because when you hit the top landing, they're, using the outside wall. So there's the wall side and the railing side, right, of any staircase. Obviously, the chairlift would go on the wall side. And when you get to the top of that, the top of the stairs, there's no wall position. Like, there's immediately the bathroom door is right there. When you come up and it's on your right-hand side, the bathroom door is right there. So any chair would have to turn and block the bathroom door.
But it would only turn and block the bathroom door for as long as it'll take to get him.
Yes, and then I guess
And then
I
you
would have
would
to
just
I'd
turn
have
it.
to I would have to move the chair out of the way
You just
so
turn
that
it. Yeah, it'll just turn back onto the track.
onto the track, and it would be blocking the top of the stairs because there's literally no real space. We're talking you hit the top of the stairs, you've got 6 inches of wall at the top of the stairs, and then the bathroom entrance is there.
Right. So typically the way these stair lifts work is they'll run up the track to the top, and so the wall will be behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit facing the opposite wall, and you go up the track that way. So when you get to the top, you have two choices. It turns, can stand up, or you can lift the arm up and stand up. So
Right.
if you turn it and it's blocking the door, but then you can stand up,
Yeah.
always turn it back. It's going to always be your space to walk up and down the steps is going to be narrow.
Really narrow. Yeah.
But it's only going to be narrow right there where the chair is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the stairs will then be normal for you. You'll just have the track on the side.
Yeah.
So wherever the chair is standing, that's going to be the narrow spot until you get by. But it is something that if you want to truly keep him at home and in your life as a husband wife upstairs, it is a good solution for you to consider, because that takes the steps out of it and it gives you the quality of life that you wish with
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it decreases the burden on you to worry about getting him upstairs, having another caregiver in the house at night to make sure that you can get him upstairs. So I think that's something to at least consider, because then we can cut down on that evening caregiver, because then you will have mostly the ability to get him up. Like if you can wake him up downstairs, get him back up the stairs using the stair lift.
Yeah.
So it's just something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Converting the downstairs bedroom or converting part of the downstairs into a living space for him will possibly eventually become inevitable, unless you really considered the stair lift, and when we get to the end stages, everything is done upstairs and he doesn't come down anymore.
Right.
Refresh my memory. Do you guys have a bathroom downstairs?
There's no full bath downstairs.
But there's a half bath, right?
There's a half bath.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the optimal is going to really be considering putting a stair lift in, where
Mm-hmm.
you can manage the steps with one person, getting him upstairs when the paid caregivers are there to help you give him his shower, but that cuts down a risk in going up and down the steps. It gives you the freedom of your house still. And then in the late stages, we can consider having that be upstairs and not living space. If you choose when you get to that end part of this to keep him home for that whole part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't actually even talked about that yet. So I don't know if that's your desire, because some are not okay with it. Some people okay with the.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. My sister wanted me to, my sister's partner, his mother just went into hospice, and he had purchased a hospital bed for her that she's like, do you want it? Are you ready? And I'm like, no, I'm not. So if I was to flip a switch and can say, yeah, I want it, I have a bed available to me that I can go and convert the room. But like I said, I'm just not ready to do that.
I don't know that Colin is ready for a hospital bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So I know that will happen. I think that having him, getting a bed like that upstairs will be, from my sister said, in terms of moving the bed, she says we had 3 guys moving that bed and it was hell, so.
So here's a question. The beds in the United States, they disassemble.
Oh, okay.
So they may just not have known how to take it apart.
Maybe.
Because the hospital beds in the United States, they're actually like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
They have a footboard, a backboard, the headboard, the footboard, the part where the mattress is, and then like a long skinny thing that goes all the way through that connect, it just slides in like a,
Oh,
puzzle.
interesting. Okay.
And then the crank is at the bottom. So you can literally, I've put them together before, and you can disassemble them and carry them up piece by piece by piece.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think my sister's partner bought this on Kijiji or whatever, right? So
My guess would be it probably disassembles.
it probably does, and they don't know. They don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. So
Mm,
back to the behavior and the
yeah.
medication and the cannabis. I would love for you to talk to the neurologist about using the natural substances as long as possible.
Hmm.
And especially if you think that it is work, if you can see a difference. If you cannot see a difference, then I would really consider the medication
Yeah.
to help smooth out the edges so to keep him at home.
He, and that was part of the conversation with, the caregiver, the service provider, because I've had, meetings with them, and I said, I'm waiting on you guys to tell me when you're willing to try again, because I might see an improvement, but I also know how he is with me. The real test is how he is with strangers.
Mhm.
you know so when are we going to try again? It's like, how do we know? We don't until we bring somebody in.
Right.
Even on the PRNs, I mean, unless he's completely sedated to the point where he's, we just don't know.
Right. Just from what I know of Colin, he does better with women.
Mhm.
Women caregivers, he does better with them than men.
Yes.
So as much as possible that we can have a female care provider, a female coming in and helping him, I think will alleviate some of the behaviors. But it's really, and you do such a good job, Mirella, that you know what triggers him, what makes things, and he absolutely needs that time to decompress. The more you push, that's when I saw the eruption.
Yeah.
And so really, if the care team around him, they absolutely need to understand that they cannot be in a,
Mhm.
and when they get in a rush, that's when they're going to precipitate what they see.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much the company understands that their care partner is actually contributing to his erupting.
They understand to a degree. They have tried to put together a very detailed care plan, and according to the coordinator, it's probably the most detailed that they've ever done. They admit that, they have slim pickings in terms of the training level and experience level of the individuals. Like, I have one PSW who is so experienced, and her energy is always positive. She has never had an issue with him, versus the one that he punched, who was a lower energy person. She didn't have any of the bubbly personality that Colin responds to. She was just kind, right? But like I said, I knew for a fact that she told me many times that she suffers from migraines and wasn't feeling very well. I didn't go so far as to tell her employer that I actually think she has a little bit of PTSD, because back home in her original country, she actually dealt with psychotic people. And one time when she wasn't even hands-on with Colin, but Colin was hands-on with me, and he made a crazy face and filled his hands and did, stuck out his tongue in a blah, blah, blah kind of way, he had a reaction,
Mhm.
and she had to leave the room. And
Then she may not be the right person.
no, definitely. I accept but she'd been coming for a while, and everything generally would be okay, but she was the one, and I told them from early on, I said, she's the one that I have the most concern about Colin acting out on. If he acts out with somebody else, it comes out of the blue for no reason, right? But the one that I have was having here for the biggest block on during the week, 6 hours, like, so that I can actually go and do stuff if I have to. She's a dream, right? And the conversation that she had with her employer, and partially was relayed back to me, was that, well, again, the time thing. She's got all the time in the world. If something doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. but we agreed a long time ago that even when somebody's here for an hour and a half, if something doesn't get done, it doesn't get done.
Mhm.
If he doesn't have his apple, so be it.
Right.
Kind of thing. If we don't brush his teeth, so be it.
Right.
Kind of thing. All of that stuff. And that she uses her techniques. She keeps her back to him when she's bent over trying to put on his slippers, for example, or whatever, so that he can't, if he was to have a reaction, which he never has, that she protects herself, right? Whereas other people bend over and Colin might swat them. So yeah, it's that conversation is ongoing, but I believe that the service providers at the point where they don't care, they just simply don't care because they believe Colin has become unpredictable. And
I don't believe that to be.
yeah, I don't believe that to be true either.
I've seen too many people. There is a trigger. They're just not recognizing what that trigger is. It's either something in the environment is going on, the TV's on in the background, or they are rushing him, or their emotional energy, something is causing it, or it's been too much back to back to back to back. It's not unpredictable. They're just not putting it together what causing.
Yeah.
But medication for him to keep him at home, I don't want you to be afraid of that if that's what keeps him calm enough to keep him at home.
I told him I was open to that. I just said if it reduced his quality of life, then I would have a problem, So that conversation is going to happen either way with the neurologist on Monday to find out what the options are and see how he tolerates it. But
Sure.
but if the service provider says, well, you have to give it to him no matter what before one of our employees come in, that kind of would set me off.
Sure. But I want you to also consider that if you do not have the service provider's help at home, ultimately, you wouldn't be able to maintain it over time.
Right.
And then he would end up in a long-term care facility, and then the quality of his life is going to change. So I want you to just balance the pros and the cons of the two. No, I don't want him snookered on medication. Not at all, for sure. But if we can find the lowest dose of whatever medication to keep him a little more level so that they feel safe, so that you can continue to have this good quality for as long as you're able, I think that's something that we need to really consider.
Right.
I know it's not a great answer.
No, it just helps to talk about it either way. Was that because it's it gets me out of my head.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. But you're doing such a good job with him. I know it doesn't always feel that.
Oh, yeah.
But I know that you are. He is in extremely, and so are you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other quick questions?
No. It helped to talk. So yeah. Thank you.
You are welcome. People who are really benefiting from the community are the people who joined earlier on before they need it and that have been active and are participating in the community, because then they already know what questions to ask and they have a place to come, and they're not constantly wondering, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? So people listening are interested in tapping into or learning about the community. I'd invite you to just go to the website, thinkdifferentdementia.com. There's a link for you to schedule a 20-minute call. There's no pressure. I'll serve you regardless of whether you join the community or not. But it is a way for you to take this relationship a little deeper, a little bit more hands-on support, because really the research also shows it's longitudinal support over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. I would highly recommend Lizette. She's awesome.
Tracy, I appreciate that endorsement.
You are welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for listening today. And as I try to remember, I don't always remember. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and come back and listen some more. I'm hoping to do more of these coaching style episodes on a Friday. So come back and check us out. And thank you for being here today.